Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Now, since the 9th of August 2022 was the 60th yahrzeit death anniversary of my second favorite writer, Hermann Hesse, I've been spotlighting him on my YouTube channel here and on my main blog this month, like his works, his books, his museums dedicated to him, awards, and his memory, but basically just things like that. And I've been recently, I'm spotlighting his breakthrough novel, Demian, which is my all-time favoriteest novel, not just by him, but like by everyone in all the books I've ever read. My real copy is in storage 900 miles away, unfortunately, so I had to read a copy through the library. This is a new translation, so it was like somewhat a new experience for me, and I really enjoyed it just as much as the previous times I've read it. I just cannot recommend this book enough. And previously I discussed the plot summary of Demian and basically just like my personal relationship with the book, you know, how I've related to it different times in my life and basically everything it means to me. And this is going to be discussing kind of like behind the scenes, a little bit about Hesse's writing process and basically just, you know, the reception and the legacy and basically all those good, wonderful things. Let's just get down with it. Hermann Hesse wrote Demian over 3 very fruitful weeks in September and October 1917. The pseudonym Emil Sinclair, although also the narrator's name, was chosen in homage to writer and diplomat Isaac von Sinclair, who lived from 1775 until 1815. Hesse's 5 previous novels hadn't sold as well as he had hoped for, unfortunately, and he didn't want to scare off the young by the well-known name of an old uncle. He also wanted readers to believe he who wrote this poetry was not Hesse, the author of so and so many books, but another person who had experienced something new and was approaching something new. In autumn 1917, Hesse contacted publisher Samuel Fischer and pretended Demian had been written by a terminally ill young writer who wanted to stay anonymous. Thus, Emil Sinclair was a pseudonym twice over. Hesse had previously used the name for some of his anti-war essays, and later used it again for the 1918 essay Eigensinn, which means self-will or obstinacy, and he also did a couple of other like short novellas and such like that with this pseudonym, so he obviously really liked it. With this pen name, he wanted to signify the start of a new life for himself. Editor Oscar Lürke liked the manuscript very much, and Fischer agreed to publish it. From February to April 1919, Demian made its debut in the literary magazine Die Neue Rundschau and came out as a book in June. Copies were flying off the shelves, and printers could barely keep pace with the wild demand. Its popularity and wide critical acclaim won Hesse the Fontana Prize for a first novel. An entire generation of people shocked and traumatized by World War I, and the resulting social upheavals deeply connected to this story, in a way they perhaps wouldn't have had they known it was written by a 40-year-old, which Hesse was at the time he was writing it. This ruse couldn't last forever, however. Samuel Fischer's wife, Hedwig, was among the first people to guess the author's true identity, and she repeatedly asked him to confide the truth to her friend Toni Flacke, wife of writer Otto Flacke. Hesse also privately told his psychotherapist Josef Lang, Samuel Fischer, and a few friends, so obviously they couldn't stay private forever. He was going around telling even like a couple of people. You know how like gossip and rumor mills go. Hesse additionally told Lang, I would prefer to publish every new work under a new pseudonym. I'm not Hesse, but was Sinclair, was Klingsor, was Klein, etc., and will be many things in future. On the 4th of July 1920, Otto Flacke and literary critic Eduard Korody published an open letter to Hermann Hesse in the journal Vivos Voco, proving he was the real author based upon style analyses and comparisons to Hesse's known earlier works. Once the truth was out, Hesse had no choice but to return the Fontana Prize. Demian was published under his real name from the 4th edition forward. Though Hesse's writings were classified as undesirable by the Nazis in 1936, Samuel Fischer was ordered to stop publishing his books in 1942. Hesse was never actually a formally banned writer, nor were his books burnt, which is a misconception I myself had for many years until I did a little bit more like detailed research. Some of his books even came out in new editions during the Nazi regime, even after the order to quit publishing his books. After the war, Hesse enjoyed a fresh wave of popularity, not just because he won the Nobel Prize in 1946, but because his stories, characters, and themes spoke so personally to this new generation, also traumatized and forever changed by war, people who desperately wanted to find themselves. In 1947, Thomas Mann wrote an introduction to the U.S. edition of Demian, which is included in many translations to this day and was also in the first translation I ever read, which came from my father's old collection of books and the one which is unfortunately in storage 900 miles away. Sadly, this new popularity was short-lived, and by 1950, Hesse was being derided as kitschy, average, ridiculously sensitive, sugar romantic, and too full of self-doubt. This was due in part to Germany's economic boom during the war recovery years, when, as in the U.S., Mindless conservative conformity was heavily championed, and individualism seen as deeply suspect, to say the very, very least. Hesse achieved yet another wave of popularity in the U.S. during the 1960s and 1970s, as his work spoke very profoundly to the countercultural movement and the latest generation awash in trauma, confusion, pain, and radical divorce from the old world. The Eastern philosophy he so loved was also very much in vogue. Demian was one of his most popular novels during this period. I mean, it was obviously his breakthrough novel when it was originally published, but when it came to like getting out to people outside of Germany and Switzerland, it was just as much of a big breakthrough, kind of like opening the door to being curious and wanting to learn more about Hesse as a person and read many more of his novels, just the way it was for me back in the mid-1990s. Before long, Hesse's American popularity translated back into Germany, and today Demian is considered one of the indispensable classics of German literature in the way, for example, Shakespeare would be considered. You absolutely have to read this if you speak English, or if you speak Italian, you would have to obviously read Dante and Boccaccio and, like, for example, like Victor Hugo in France, and like basically just classics around the world like that. To date, it's been translated into at least 27 languages and hopefully many, many more in future. Surprisingly, the book has also become very popular in South Korea in recent years, particularly among the under 30 set, because the K-pop boy group BTS quoted it in a bunch of their songs and music videos. I'm not really familiar with like K-pop at all, except for like some of these like people hijacked one of my writing hashtags on Twitter a while ago, and we had to change the name of the hashtag because they were just like basically ruining it for everyone. So, but I realized maybe they're not all like that. That was just like a bad example on Twitter of those people. So thank you very much for listening to the end. Hopefully this video didn't seem too short and superficial in what came before and what I talked about with Demian. I absolutely love this book. I cannot say enough good things about it. I did consider making a video and a blog post about like symbolism in it and what inspired Hesse to, like, for example, base a certain character on a person or a concept in real life, and what this, like, for example, like biblical allusions and pop culture in his era and such like that. But I thought that might kind of be veering into annoying English teacher territory, like, oh, this is exactly what this means, and this is what you're supposed to think about it, and this is exactly the only way to interpret it. So I guess I stayed away from that, although if people want me to do that in the future, I would be considering doing that for a blog post and a video. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I do a lot of videos like this talking about classic world literature. I'm kind of the really like serious, intense side of BookTube and AuthorTube, and please, if you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload new videos. I would hate to think some subscribers haven't been seeing my videos at all, and also consider liking and particularly commenting. I really do appreciate seeing comments from my viewers and subscribers, because how else am I supposed to make friends and learn how to improve my channel and what I should do more of and what I should do less of. Basically, like, that's the only way I can learn. And so thank you guys again for all of your support and for listening to the end, and I will see you again very soon. Thanks again. Bye.